О том, как смягчить воздействие западных санкций, говорил сегодня Михаил Мишустин. На встрече со своим белорусским коллегой российский премьер подчеркнул, надо усилить сотрудничество в рамках союзного государства, а на совещании в правительстве обсуждали, как сохранить...
Mikhail Lublin and Valeria Nikolaeva had only been dating for a couple of weeks when they were forced to flee Kiev. Nikolaeva is Ukrainian. Lublin is Russian.
I represent some maybe small, maybe not population of Russian people who don't support Russian policy, who don't support Russian president, who don't support Russian government, and who basically want to kind of repay and bear responsibility for what Russia has done.
The couple arrived in Budapest, Hungary after a 5-day journey. Lublin's Russian nationality added to the complicated situation.
At first, when we met and I knew that he was Russian, it was a bit weird, but nothing serious. However, when the war started, it was a different story because there was a lot of mistrust from Ukrainian people towards Russians. And I was afraid for him that he would not be liked under these circumstances.
It's still hard for them to relax in the safety of their new city. They shudder at sudden noises and police sirens.
I hope that we'll be in some safe country where we can build a new life and settle down and wait until this whole craziness is over.
Lublin and Nikolaeva are two of the estimated 2.7 million people the UN's refugee agency says have fled Ukraine. Both have professions that could take them anywhere in Europe, but one day they hope to return to Ukraine.
Tech stocks dragged down Wall Street on Monday. Investors showed little reason for optimism as they looked ahead to what will likely be a hike in U.S. interest rates and saw little progress in peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. The Dow finished flat, erasing gains from earlier in the session. The S&P 500 ended down 0.75%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq fell 2%. Adam Coons, a portfolio manager at Winthrop Capital Management, said the rate-sensitive tech sector is under pressure from a rising 10-year Treasury yield.
Tech is the biggest driver of today's downside for the S&P 500. You see stocks like Alphabet, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, all down over 2%. So you're just kind of seeing a broad-based sell-off in technology, and that's largely attributed to the fact that interest rates, the 10-year Treasury now has gone over 2.10%.
Major U.S. bank stocks climbed with Treasury yields on the prospect of the Fed beginning to raise interest rates for the first time in 3 years this week in an effort to combat rising inflation. Adding to investor worries were more potential supply chain issues as tighter health restrictions in China forced Apple supplier Foxconn to suspend operations. Shares of Apple ended more than 2.5% lower. The stricter health measures hit Chinese stocks on Monday, with Alibaba, Baidu, and JD.com all closing down more than 8%.
Police on Monday sought help from the public in identifying a suspect in a series of fatal shootings targeting homeless men in New York City and Washington, D.C. Police say there were 5 separate attacks and 2 victims were killed. New York City Mayor Eric Adams called the case clear and horrific.
A total abandonment and betrayal of trust for this action to have taken place in the manner that it did. The video is chilling to see a cold-blooded act of murder.
Police are seeking information about a man with a shaved head and a goatee seen in surveillance video. The first 3 shootings targeted victims in Washington, followed by 2 shootings in New York. That's according to a joint statement from D.C.'s Metropolitan Police and the NYPD. 1 victim in each city was killed. The first attack was reported in the early hours of March 3rd, when D.C. police officers were alerted to gunshots on New York Avenue. The victim was rushed to a local hospital. Another followed on March 8th, and a day later, police responded to a tent on fire and found a man who had died from multiple stab and gunshot wounds. Days later, the attacks began in New York City with 2 more men shot. Police are investigating what could be a 6th connected shooting.
Tight security outside this hotel in Rome marked the high-stakes diplomacy inside. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan pressed Washington's message on a Chinese diplomat, asking Beijing not to take additional actions to support Moscow amid the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The White House described the 7-hour sit-down between Sullivan and Yang Jiechi as intense, reflecting what it called the gravity of the moment. Sullivan warned China of the economic penalties and global isolation it would face if it continues to support Russia in its invasion of Ukraine. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
Should they provide military or other assistance that, of course, violates sanctions or supports the war effort, that there will be significant consequences. But in terms of what those specifics look like, we would coordinate with our partners and allies to make that determination.
Psaki said the meeting had been scheduled for some time, adding,
it was a timely and important moment to have this conversation.
It took place as the U.S. told allies in NATO that China had signaled its willingness to provide military and economic aid to Russia to support its war. But China on Monday said reports of such a request from Russia was merely U.S. disinformation. Russia, too, denied it had asked China for military assistance and said it had sufficient military clout to fulfill all of its aims in Ukraine. U.S. officials and allies have tried to make clear to Beijing in recent weeks that siding with Russia could carry consequences for trade flows, development of new technologies, and could expose it to secondary sanctions. China, a key trading partner of Russia, has refused to call Moscow's actions an invasion, although China's President Xi Jinping last week did call for maximum restraint and expressed concern about the impact of Western sanctions on the global economy.